Hello everyone, I'm Jesus and welcome to the next episode of the Road to Old School MTG. In this video, I have my Lobstercon 2024 review. I'll talk about the decks that I used and how I did in this tournament, and also compare it to the previous year's tournament, which was my first year. So this is now my second year attending Lobstercon. Both years I attended the X Point side event on Friday, and then the Atlantic main event on Saturday. I will also go over some changes that I think I'm going to be making to the decks in the future based off of the experience I had in this year's tournament. So first of all, just a quick look at the things that I got. So got the Lobstercon 2024 playmat. So this is a play off the Transmute artifact, I believe. Art from Ansymatics, which was an artist there. I got a living artifact signed by him, Unlimited Living Artifact, one of my favorite artworks from him. So it was pretty cool meeting him. The participation cards. So for the X points, there was the Goblins of the Floor given out from the Dark. And then for the main event, or actually it could be maybe the other way, I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, this was the main event. Hymn to Torak card given out to everyone for the Atlantic main events. And then this is the pin for the tournament. Let's see, right there. So pretty cool. I like the bold colors. All right, so that's the things that I got from there. I didn't make any moves on purchasing any cards or things like that. I have already what I need and didn't really feel a need to get anything in addition to what I already had. All right, so now let's go into the decks that I took for this year's tournaments, starting with X points. For X points, I took a Dead Guy L deck. Last year, I took a black and blue deck, which was mainly black weenies and then with blue for dips and blue power. I didn't do very well. I was in the bottom half of the standings. So for this year, this is what I took. I am very familiar with black and X points, right? So but I usually play black weenie in the online tournaments, but I felt like I would get to the semifinal group pretty consistently, actually. But I've never made it beyond that, right? So there was always that hurdle that I couldn't surpass. And I figure going more mid-range and adding whites would solve a lot of the problems that I was experiencing. And actually, I was correct. So I ended up having a 5-2 record. There were 7 rounds. I won 5 games, lost 2 games. That was good for 15th place out of 78, I believe, right? So a little below 80 participants. I was 15th place. So made it within the top 16. So I am pretty happy with how I did. So for the decks that I faced, I don't remember too much the winning ones, but I remember more the ones that I lost. So for one of them, I lost against a Line Dip Bolt deck, yeah. So it had a couple little different cards here and there. It had a Shahrazad. That was the first time I ever got that card played against me, so it was pretty cool. And I won that game. That was the first game, but then I lost the other 2, very tightly contested. So it could have gone either way, but unfortunately, I got the loss on that one. We had 3 games. All the games were pretty, like I said, pretty tightly contested. So there's not much I think I could add. So in general, I added the Ivory Towers up from the sideboard. In hindsight, that's a very poor decision for me. Spirit Links are a vastly better solution because it allows me to be aggressive and gain life. Because Line Dip Bolt, very fast deck, and with the direct damage, very easy to lose very quickly. So with the Ivory Towers, I was just being too passive, right? This particular deck is not fast. I have the Soul Ring, that's the only ramp card that I have here. Then other than that, I have a good curve. So that's how I can get around not being so fast, is that I have a good curve. I have witches and 2 royal assassins as a 2-drop. Then I got the hippies as a 3-drop. There were 2 Darlos and 2 Jusums as a 4, and then 3 vampires as a 5-drop, right? And then in addition, some control elements with the icy manipulators. Also, the royal assassins are good for control, and of course, the full complement of disenchants and swords for white. Hymns and Sinkhole also could be control. So the deck did very well. I liked it. Like I said, when I lost to Line the Bolts, I think if I had Spearlings instead of the Ivory Towers, it would have been a far different game. I put in Pestilence against that deck. Either I drew it, but I didn't need to play it. I was already losing. I'm not sure. But basically, Pestilences, in general, whenever I did put them in. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I ever used the Pestilence once. So that's why it's still a little undecided for its effectiveness. But definitely the Ivory Towers, I would replace them with Spearlings. Okay, and then the other deck that I lost against was a fellow Dead Guy L deck. So it was basically the mirror match, but the differences were mine deck was a bit more controlly with the icy manipulators, and his was more and the icy manipulators and plus the Kumba witches, but his deck was more offensive and fast. With he had 4 dark rituals and the 4 orders, right? So for against that particular matchup, I felt it boiled down more just to luck. I didn't get a good land drawn from both games, and then my opponent had the sinkholes. I think the hymns also discarded some lands, so I felt that, and I got pretty well handled, right? So like it wasn't a total domination, but I think like he got it pretty handily, and so the lands just didn't work out in my favor with the sinkhole. So I think in general it was more just bad luck. Not sure what I could have added in terms of the sideboard against that particular deck. I think it's more just for me being able to keep a better opening hand and try to maintain an opening hand with more lands, right? Maybe mulligan so I can get one with more lands, right? Usually that's counterintuitive. You want 2. If I see 2 lands in my hand, I think usually that's pretty good for me, and then I take it. If I see 4, I think about mulliganing, right? Because then if I see even 5, right, definitely, right? So, but in this case, maybe I should have kept something that had a high land count, right? So it's more about strategy than anything else. And the 2 Jusums, I do not own those 2 Jusums. They were lent to me by a fellow Sister of the Flame member. Also, I don't have that 4 scrub land. So the same friend lent me that one as well, right? So props to my friend Rich for that. But other than that, everything else is mine as it appears here, right? So Lobstercon main tournaments, no proxies allowed. All right, so then that was my experience with X points. Now let's go to Atlantic, right? The main event. For Atlantic, I took Armageddon or Bantamgeddon, right? So it's the same thing, except Bantamgeddon implies you're using blue as well, right? Which you see, I have the 3 dips, Ancestor and Time Walk, and I have some blue cards in addition on the sideboard, Blue Elemental Blast and Energy Fluxes. So last year I was 4-4, and I stayed around like the mid-range to bottom half of the standings. This year I was 48th out of almost 240 players, and it was confirmed that Atlantic event, Lobstercon event, was the highest attended old school event of all time, right? So it's pretty cool to be part of that, and even cooler that I got such a high ranking for it. So I was 5-3, so 5 wins, 3 losses. So, and really that's, if you consider it, if you compare it from the 4-4, that's just 1 win additional. But really, that doesn't tell the full story. Not only was I, of course, 1 win more, but I actually ended up being on the higher tables. So I was in the top 16 for 1 point, which is pretty pretty big deal, at least to me it is, right? So, and I stayed around that top table for 2 rounds. I won against one opponent, and then I went a little higher. That's when I think I reached the top 16 for a bit, and then I lost to the deck. But that's always a losing proposition in general, right? The deck is, of course, so dominant, and the deck ended up winning Lobstercon, the Atlantic Lobstercon events. Not against the player that I played though, but against a different player. So 5-3, let's once again. So I'll talk more about the losses than the wins. But I will start with, actually, I do remember some wins because last year, a similar version of this deck, I took the same deck, but slightly different. I lost 2 games to 2 players that used Blood Moon. I basically lost immediately because I only had 1 basic plains in the deck. So this year I made the changes so that way, number one, I felt like I needed more lands. Like sometimes I wasn't dropping lands, and I was like 1 land away from casting a big creature like that Urnum, like that Sarah. So I bumped the land count to 22 from 20 last year, and also bumped the basic land count. So I have 4 plains, 1 island, and 1 forest. So like I mentioned last year, the 2 players that played Blood Moon against me, I lost those games and I got wrecked. This year I had 2 players play Blood Moon against me, and I won both those matches. So I'm very happy that this change gave me the results that I anticipated. So that's 1 big win. Another card that was played against me last year was Sitting in a Bottle. I did not get that cast against me this year, right? So, but either way, I do have protection against that, at least a bit more than last year. Last year I have 4 Urnums, 4 Dips, 4 City of Brasses, and the Library of Alexandria. So that's 13 cards being affected by just 1 Sitting in a Bottle. So I mitigate that by only doing 3 Urnums and 3 Dips, no cities, and no Loa, right? So only 6 cards at most can be affected by us Sitting in a Bottle. But like I said, I didn't encounter any this year. Or if I did, it did seem like it wasn't a big deal. But no, I don't believe I did. So I can't compare last year to this year for that. But another card that did affect me last year, and I did experience once this year, was the Abyss. So last year I remember, like, it was similar to Blood Moon. I must have had at least 2 players cast the Abyss on me, and I think I lost those matches. I definitely lost at least 1. Right, so basically, similar to Blood Moon, it would wreck me. So this year I faced it, and I believe it was against the deck. So I did end up losing, but I didn't feel like, I still got some attacks, and I was able to double the creatures, right, playing 2. So that way, when one gets sacrificed, the another one can still come in for attack, and then play another one that same turn. So that way, once again, one can get sacrificed next turn while still leaving 1 for attack, right? So I got in some. Eventually, the Abyss won out, but then I was also able to disenchant it. So basically, I was able to work around it a bit, enough that I was still in the game, basically, right? So I do have the 2 Juggernauts, which help a little bit with the Abyss. Since I took out an Urnum and a Dip, I figured a Juggernaut would be a good addition because, of course, it's a big creature, and also being an artifact, it would help me against the Abyss, right? I don't think I played it while the Abyss was out, but it is in the deck, right? So now going into the losses, like I said, I lost against the deck. That's to be expected. I had the Energy Fluxes sideboard mainly for robots, and of course I knew it would work against the deck since the deck has so many artifacts, especially Jame Day Tome, to get those additional draws and get overwhelm the opponent with options, right? This year I did face 1 robots, and it was definitely a very contested game as well, but I ended up winning, and I think I cast the Energy Flux there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, but it seemed like it didn't really affect. And then same thing for the deck. On the first game, my opponent had a whole bunch of artifacts, right? So, but of course I don't have Energy Flux yet because they're in the sideboard. So the second game I put all 4 in, hopeful that my opponent will do something similar, right? Have a lot of artifacts in the second game, but really he had barely any out, and he was able to just get me down through other means, right? So the energy fluxes proved ineffective, and in hindsight, I would put 4 divine offerings in those 4 slots. I think that would be a much better use of it. So I lost that one, like I mentioned already. The other thing I could use, the other 2 games, I lost the first game to either dead guy L or mono black, right? But against I had Jusums played against me actually, but the friend that lent me the Jusums, he ended up beating me with those same cards during our match, right? So that's actually how I started the tournament, with 1 loss, right? And then I was already feeling a little bummed, thinking, it's not gonna go well. But after that loss, I got 4 wins in a row, so it brought me to 4-1. And then that's where I was put into the more higher tables. I lost the next one, so that turned me into 4-2 for a bit. Then I won the next. I was 5-2. Actually 5-2, and then lost the last one. And then that's where the 5-3 went, right? So against that particular deck, I remember, similar. I think I was just mana screwed. I didn't get enough lands, and then he was hemming me, he was sinkholing my lands, so basically he worked on that side of things. So I think, like I mentioned, if I had I would put in, just like for the other deck, I would put in Spirit Links in the sideboard for this one, right? The Blue Elemental Blast proved very ineffective, plus it's passive, right? So I think Spirit Links are good. First, it could be defensive if they cast a turn 1 Jusum, let's say. I only have 2 swords main deck, right? So if I don't get one of those 2, I'm in trouble. But in the sideboard, I have 2 more, but as additional protection, I could put in 3 Spirit Links, and I would put those in, so that way, in case there's a very quick creature and I don't happen to have drawn a swords, I could put a Spirit Link on, right? Or that could work in my favor as well, for when I put it on my creatures, to gain life off of that, right? So there's a few different applications, right? But that's the reason why I lost that one, right? So I don't know if I could have done more. Like I said, may add the Spirit Links, like I said, but I did put in the Karmas, but I don't think I was too low in lands to cast it, right? Didn't have the mana for it. So I think that one's just a tricky matchup, and it's just the luck of the draw, right? So, but I think the Spirit Links, in addition to the swords, that would have helped more against, because I got beat down by Jusum, right? So if I had not just 4 swords, but 3 Spirit Links in addition, I think that would have been a big help. And then that would give me the time to recuperate, and because I was also getting attacked by hippies and losing cards, right? So very effective game plan. I lost that one. And then I lost the very last one as well to Line the Bolt, where once again, if I had the Spirit Links instead of the Blue Elemental Blast, I could have been offensively winning, as opposed to Blue Elemental Blast, where it's passive, right? I'm waiting for my opponent to do something and then I counter it. But he ended up side blasting things, right? And then Blue Elemental Blast doesn't do anything against that, right? So it just, it seemed very passive. If I had drawn a Spirit Link instead of where I had the Blue Elemental Blast, I'm sure I would have won that game. So that game was very tight as well. It went to 3 games. I won the first, and then I believe he won the next 2, right? But he won the match overall. So that was my last game, and I did all my board flips nicely, but unfortunately that's the one that I missed out on. I missed 1 flip on that one. But by that point he was already pretty dominant, and it was I was way behind by that point, right? So against that deck, I must have put in the swords and the Wrath of Gods, because sometimes they overwhelm, right? They have a lot of small creatures, the lions. Some versions have Javelineers. I think his version had Javelineers as well, Dibs as well, right? So a lot of quick, fast creatures. And then you finish it off with direct damage. So I put those in. They were effective. That works. But the Blue Mantle Blast were too passive, and then I was dropping in life. If, like I said, for next time, I would, in addition, put in those three Spurlings. So I already have a good idea of what the changes I want to make for both decks. But actually, for the deck IL, like I said, I usually play Black Weenie. So let me go actually to that deck. So for this one, I usually play Black Weenie in the X Points tournaments, mainly because, of course, I don't own any Juzons. And it's a very different deck because it's Weenies. It has Bad Moons, right? So flood the board. But it stalls out, right? But I do have a few ideas. So for this one, I may be switching back and forth and then seeing which one I like overall. But I definitely do like that guy L, but this was basically the first. I basically played this for like a few weeks before the tournament, right? So I didn't have a lot of experience. So I still have to decide, whether this is the avenue I want to go long term. So I'm going to be switching between this one and then the more traditional Black Weenie, seeing if I can make changes to that version that is stronger, and then basically between the two, see which one I like better and which one I feel has better chances to do better in tournament settings. But for the Atlantic one, going back to that one, my Armageddon deck, this is the deck that I'm going to be using, unless of course I decide to switch it up. I was earlier anticipating playing robots actually, but I would have needed to borrow like 10 cards, and since I felt robots was going to be a bit more overrepresented in this tournament, which I was correct, I felt there was going to be a lot of hate against it, right? So then I figured this, by playing something that's out of left field, like Armageddon, that I could get around that and surprise people, which I definitely did. That Armageddons, a lot of times I would just end up putting the extra 2 Armageddons, having 4 total, right? So, and right, Armageddon is definitely not a top tier deck, right? Doesn't get represented. The 4 main ones are the deck, robots. Actually, the main 3 are the deck, robots, and blinded bolt. And then right below, I would say Disc Control, and then even Twitter Vault is gaining popularity as well. Right, so Armageddon is nowhere near that in terms of representation, right? But I definitely like this deck. I felt more at home with it, and I'm still want to continue with the robots deck, right? So little by little, I will be acquiring the cards for that. Not the Mishra's Factory, right? That's my version is Mishra's Factory less. At most, I have maybe one where I could borrow from a friend, but I like that version because I think it's a bit more versatile, even if it's a bit less fast. I feel it's just a bit more versatility. Plus, I've won against a traditional shops deck with that robots deck, right? So I'll might switch back and forth, but I do feel this one is. I really like this deck. I really felt at home, and I really like seeing that progression of improvement from one year to the next, where I had the 4-4 record, and now with the same deck with the modifications I made, now I had a 5-3 record, and I was able to hit top 16. Even if it was just for one round, I still hit top 16, or at least I'm pretty sure I did, right? If not, I was top 16, top 20, right? But that's pretty high. And I was within the top tables for 2 rounds. So that's a very marked improvement, right? And then I'm already anticipating those changes, like I mentioned already. The fluxes for the Divine Offerings, the 3 Spurlings for the Blue Elemental Blast, Karmas. I'm still debating what to switch for that. I'm thinking maybe Sylvan Libraries that has a bit versatility, plus card draw against the deck and just other control decks. Although I did play against a mono black opponent and Karma won me the game, right? So I'm hesitant to let go of Karmas, but you have, Karma just works against a very specific type of deck, right? So So I'm debating that, or might just drop it to 1 karma and then 1 sylvan. We'll see, right? So this is still just 2 days after Lobstercon, right? So still very fresh. A lot of things that are just hypothetical changes. I still gotta then actually apply it and see how I like it. But once again, it was a very memorable event. I had a blast with my friends. We rented an Airbnb, stayed 3 nights, and just the whole experience was pretty cool. And of course, just doing so much better from last year to this year really gives me that motivation I needed to continue progressing with my gaming. And actually, I had a player who recognized my voice and then was telling me, right, that he enjoyed my video, so that was pretty cool. And actually, he's also did a video as well, which I told him I enjoyed as well, right? So to Kyle 8, and other than that, that's my review. Very, very good improvement from last year, and I'm looking forward to improving even more. Hopefully, if I can attend the one for 2025. Thank you guys for watching.